as possible. But after that, will be exclusively available on Rumble with Sally's Army is Legion, Lord Gigglesnort, Free Thinking Moron, and Zach1328. Because to speak freely about a subject like Jeffrey Epstein and his potential CIA involvement requires a trusted community for us to postulate, posit, and speculate on what is going on in that synagogue tunnel in New York City. A story that I learned about when I was doing a live stream with my Awakened Wonders community on Locals. And I see that Firegirl 2020 is there right now, and art by Wendy Klein and Laura P. They told me, what's this story about the tunnels in the synagogue? So we looked into that, and I'd love to know your theories. What exactly is going on in that tunnel? It's an extraordinary archetypal tale. What goes on beneath the streets? So we'll be on YouTube for a little bit, then we'll be on Rumble. Remember, download the app and subscribe, and give us a like. We really need subscribers on Rumble as well. Scroll up, guys. Thank you. So let's have a look, shall we, at this synagogue story. Remember, you can join us. You can join us on YouTube, but get over to Rumble, please, pretty swiftly.
A synagogue in the New York City erupted into chaos over the discovery of a secret underground tunnel. Jewish synagogue members clashed with the New York Police Department to prevent the tunnel.
I firstly like this Indian news channel a great deal. I find it extraordinarily enjoyable. I like the cadence, and I like that the nations and continents are elevated from golden oceans.
From being sealed off. Well, construction workers arrived on Monday to fill an illegal tunnel at the headquarters. Young Orthodox Jewish men climbed into the path to block the closure of the tunnel. The tunnel reportedly runs from the main synagogue to a now closed building next door. The motive behind its existence remains unclear as of now. It is also not known why the synagogue members reacted so chaotically to the arrivals of the authorities.
Why is the reaction so chaotic? Have we got that other clip where indeed it is chaotic? That's at the end of this, is it? I've been in synagogues before, I've been in mosques before, I've been in cathedrals and churches. There are many ways to reach God, and I think at a time like this, we should be looking to reach God in as many ways as possible. This is an extraordinary event. These worshippers are very passionate about that tunnel. I want to know why they are so passionate. What's going on in that tunnel? It's extraordinary down there. Later on in the show, we're going to be talking a little more about recent Epstein revelations, a few more revelations today, with the claim that there are tapes, scattered tapes, including contributions from some pretty high-profile people. Also, we're going to be looking at the possibility that Epstein was a CIA operative. Was he a CIA operative? We talked about that a little bit yesterday. Many of you think that's a distinct possibility. We also want to talk about Albert Bourla's $43 billion moonshot part 2 gamble that turbo cancers are the future. Have you guys heard about this? Have you heard that Albert Bourla believes that the future is turbo cancers? And we do know that some recent medical interventions appear to have exacerbated certain cardiovascular conditions. Is it possible that oncology will be similarly affected by recent medical interventions? Certainly, I'm not in a position to present you verifiable data to that effect, but it is true that cancer in young people is on the rise. Daniel Hall, Albert Bourla, wish I was a little bit taller. Yes, indeed. So let's first of all have a little look at a wonderful and rare moment of honest, truthful reporting and confrontational. Have a look at this journalist talking to Justin Trudeau, whose the first syllable of his name denies his whole way of life. Have a look at this conversation and the moment where Justin Trudeau is confronted with the fact that people don't like him. It's really rather blunt and fascinating.
And I understand wanting to advance that agenda, and that it's hard to let go of being in power once you're in. But historically, Canadian prime ministers don't get elected 4 times in a row, and people are being very clear that they don't like you in these polls.
People are frustrated right now.
No, people aren't frustrated. They don't like you. Don't try and turn it to frustration. They don't like you, and they don't like your little yellow and black socks.
But on a personal level, I made a commitment in 2015 to a whole bunch of young people who came out to vote for the very, very first time that we were going to be doing the right kinds of things to secure the promise of this country in a way that people were worried about.
In a sense, Justin Trudeau is the epitome of the neoliberal politician who speaks the language of tolerance and diversity but legislates for tyranny, briefly acknowledging that he admired the new Chinese statist autocracy. Do you remember that moment? And maybe the reason that Justin Trudeau is not popular is because of extraordinary moments like this. Did you see when Rebel News tried to interview Chrystia Freeland, she of the sarcastic name. Chrystia Freeland is a significant political figure in Canada, Deputy Prime Minister. Of course, you will be familiar, I believe, with her ancestral connections to a little old party called the Nazis. I think that's like, we're still on YouTube. I think her grandfather was in the Nazis. Is that right? And certainly in Parliament in Canada, they did applaud an actual Nazi. Have a look at this moment where Rebel News reporter David Menzies wants to interview, or at least doorstep. Now, I myself have been on the wrong end of the media on numerous times. The legacy media can be extremely disruptive and intrusive. They do not respect your personal space. But have a look at this. This is simply, in a sense, an attempt to interview Chrystia Freeland, who you would imagine might be, from her name, an elfine utopian governing one of the principalities or shires in a Tolkien-esque wonderland, but seems in reality to be somewhat affiliated with Nazism. Here's look at her acolytes preventing her from being confronted with a microphone.
Why is your government supporting Islamo-Nazis? What? Excuse me. What are you doing?
You're under arrest for assault.
What, sir?
Why are you pushing me? You're under arrest for assault.
Who are you?
You're under arrest for assault.
Much more aggressive, isn't it, than what he did? He was sort of like rather meekly and in an adorable fedora trying to sort of use a, excuse me, why exactly? I can't even remember what his question was, but he was slammed in. I'm going to go back a little bit and have a look at that. Because look at the moment where he's trying to interview an elected official paid for by taxpayer money. That doesn't look that confronting. Let's have a look. Oh, excuse me.
Why is your government supporting Islamo-Nazis? What? Excuse me. What are you doing?
You're under arrest for assault.
What, sir?
Why are you pushing me? You're under arrest for assault.
Who are you?
You're under arrest for assault. Police.
So that person there, the presumably is a police officer, has arrested him for assault. Did he get arrested for assault? That was pretty heavy, wasn't it? Night Prowler 636. The Nazis were lefty. Yeah, socialist, not right wing. Yes, National Socialism. Okay, but I think we can agree amongst ourselves that the Nazis were a bad force in global politics due to, among other things, that hideous genocide. Now, let's just see how the rest of this tape plays out.
Police, you're under arrest. How am I under arrest? You bumped into me. You pushed into me. You bumped. I was just.
Oh, look, that's how. That's just fun. I've never seen that before. You pushed into me, sir. He knows already that he's gone too far, doesn't he? You pushed into me, sir, which, as you know, is assault. Like, I think they shouldn't be able to hide behind legal language. I think they should have, you are under arrest for pushing into me, sir. If they had to use the sort of playground discourse that they use when they're beginning to retract their initial statement and apologise, hey, I love you too, wifey 2010. Keep the comments coming, guys, and remember to subscribe to our channel and give us a little like if you're watching us on Rumble. If you're in our Awakened Wonder community there, Do It Better From Now, or Monkey Mind, or Fire Girl 2020, or Maximatitis 444, or S-Range IDE, I tell you now, you are most welcome and you are well loved. Yeah, he's already starting to retract it. It looks like they've got a legal fight there. Stand with David. God bless him. Stand with David and his adorable fedora.
I got my credentials here and you just bumped into me. So excuse
Police,
me.
You're under arrest.
What is your name and your badge?
He's all adrenalized, isn't he? Police, you're under arrest for pushing me. Sir, earlier when we paid scissor, paper, stones, those scissors on your fingers, although they were actually your scissors, very much hurt the paper. I mean, that's the most juvenile accusation I've encountered. Now, there are some further documents, allegedly, about some of the Epstein list. Like, is it possible that you could go to Epstein Island for just some innocent fun? It's saying that Bill Clinton, like most people by now know that he's a sort of loved a trip to the archipelago. Bill Clinton, never happier than when he's on an island. Also, Richard Branson. That's interesting. He's got his own island. I mean, what was he getting out of it? Let's have a look at, I think this is some legacy media reporting on the subject. Again, what is interesting to us is not the salacious, prurient interest in the consensual sexual activity of famous people, but what's going on with this guy's ties to powerful people, and indeed, how did he end up unpersoned in a cell? We think that Copperfield was involved.
This all comes from a previously sealed deposition from an Epstein victim, Sarah Ransom. She claims there are sex tapes of former President Bill Clinton, Prince Andrew, and media mogul Richard Branson, and that all three of those men can be clearly identified. On top of that, she claims she has copies of these tapes and scattered them throughout different secret locations in Europe just in case anything bad actually happened to her.
Scattered them around different locations, kind of like a treasure hunt, but a sex tape treasure hunt around the world. What was that term you guys used earlier? Geocaching, but with sex tapes. Oh dear. But then look, the story gets this treasure hunt gets a little more dubious.
She said only one other person knows those locations, but there's also questions now about the credibility of this whistleblower and if those tapes actually do exist. An article from the New Yorker from 2019 shows that Ransom reportedly admits she made up the whole story about those tapes. The news story states, quote, she had invented the tapes to draw attention to Epstein's behavior and to make him believe that she had evidence that would come out if he harmed me. We also dug up a separate email from Ransom retracting some of those statements, although at the time she claimed that she was retracting those statements because she feared retaliation.
Okay. Any response from the Clinton camp, from President Clinton or anybody close to him from any of this?
Right. As you know, that's one of the first things that we have to do. We reached out to President Clinton's team to see if they had any response to these new allegations.
Go on, surprise me. What did they say?
That there are tapes of him having sex with an unnamed...
I mean, that is not good, is it? That is not a good look. There's actual tapes. Are there, though? What will that treasure hunt reveal? Extraordinary, as a matter of fact. Extraordinary that, like, if you think about it, if you're like my age, and I am, there's like Alex Jones and David Icke, who we're working out getting on the show. David Icke is suffering for a tragic, sad loss of a member of his family, his daughter, and our condolences, sincere condolences go out to David Icke and his family for that loss. But I would really like to speak with David Icke because what fascinates me about David Icke is he was saying this stuff for 20 or 30 years. He's certainly received a lot of condemnation and a lot of attacks. And I don't think you have to agree with everything someone says to be fascinated by their bravery and, in some cases, their perspicacity. The fact is we have just had a global event that seems extraordinary. We continue to report about that. And what would he... And he did say, oh, lots of powerful people are involved in like these sex rings and stuff. And I don't know, man, more and more of this stuff appears to be true. So I hope we get to have a conversation about David Icke about that pretty soon. But let's get back to this sex tape treasure hunt that's being called the new Pokemon Go.
Epstein victim. One of the most damning allegations, Connell, within that deposition is that not only was she silenced by the Clinton campaign, but also that the Clinton Foundation, that church...
What, the Clinton family? Silencing people? I don't know about that. I've not heard any stories of that nature.
Charitable organization paid her off to force that silence, but as of right now, we haven't heard back yet from Clinton's team.
Hey, that person that's posting about La Reina, we are looking at that, but I'm sort of, if you've got any sort of good stuff on that, a lot of people talking about like in the La Reina fire, some dubious stuff went down. We're looking at those kind of stories. We're trying our level best. But as you know, even though we want to report truthfully and in a passionate and enthusiastic way, and even though we're not afraid to speculate, and even though we know that in order to convey the information that's going to arm us to challenge establishment narratives, we're going to have to take risks. We also want to be careful because it's vital that we maintain our credibility with our audience. Yeah, Sticker Mule. Where are Sticker Mule these days? They've not. Sometimes I end up advertising Sticker Mule. They don't need to pay me. I just love the stickers. It is a nice fedora, says Cosmo58. Questionings now an assault, says Jim Earthsea. A gateway to a world of distraction. Oh yeah, you're talking about the tunnel. Oh, the tunnel. Yeah, that is an extraordinary tunnel. Okay, so our man Madison Cawthorn has revealed that blackmail and honeypots are frequently used in Congress. Now, I don't particularly like the phrase honeypots. I prefer honey traps. Honey traps, many of you will be familiar with, it's a sort of a blackmail technique where the offer of sex is put up and people are often filmed in compromising positions. That's what the sort of Pokemon Go sex tape treasure hunt thing is all about. Well, Madison Cawthorn is saying that honeypots and blackmail are frequently used by deep state agencies and organizations to control members of Congress. What I think is fascinating about the time we live in is these things are being consistently reported on now. How can they ever regain, yet let alone maintain, the kind of control that they used to have over the minds of the population? Do you know anybody out there now that watches the legacy media and accepts it as truth as they sip and sup on that weak gruel of treachery and deception? Do they still think, oh yeah, everything is as it seems, everything is okay, you can trust the government, you can trust the legacy media? Plainly they have no skin in the game in repressing dissenting voices and shutting down opposition. They want to report truthfully and honestly. As these stories continue to tumble out, we're able to piece together a mosaic of the previously concealed reality, we become harder and harder to control. This movement is growing and you are a vital component. That's why, if you can, you should become an Awaken Wonder. Over there on Locals, we do additional content. Yes, we read the great books. Yes, we're trying to awaken together, pursue the Tao, study the Gita, but we're also talking about new social and economic models, how we will form them together, and we're creating in real life events. Let's have a look at Madison Cawthorn saying that Congress is what does he call it? A sort of a cesspit of honeypots, which sounds like, I don't know, sort of a surf and turf of the blackmail land.
And all of a sudden, they're very interested in you. Yeah. Just know that that person is probably there on purpose, and they're very good at their job, and they are trying to put you in a compromising position.
He's very beefy, isn't he? Am I right in thinking that he's a wheelchair user, this guy? He's upper body. I think he would be described as hench. Now, some people are saying that they can see you, Gareth, in the reflection in the window. We don't usually show Gareth till we hit 20,000. We're a few hundred off that now, so please avert your eyes from Gareth. He's a treat. He's a honeypot.
And so...
Honeypot.
Yep, honeypot. And I have...
A honeypot. It's just a honeypot.
Found that the most common thing in Washington...
Is this who Chappelle was joking about in his special? Is it him when he was saying like about the orgies and stuff? Let me know in the chat.
That is used to blackmail you for, and I can't, with whatever organization it's from, within our own government, is honeypots.
Within our own government?
I don't like the phrase honeypots.
Yeah. So our own government agency is doing this. In order to have what? Like leverage on a member of Congress?
Leverage, yeah. I mean, you just saw that the FBI just got a building bigger than the Pentagon built for them.
Yeah.
You better give us a building bigger than the goddamn Pentagon, or I'm going to honeypot you right where it hurts.
And I mean, and then all of a sudden, think about it. 10 days before the vote was supposed to happen, it was likely it was not going to pass. 10 days.
Second CH says, read Whitney Webb. Whitney is coming on the show next week. One of the journalists who's way ahead of the curve on the Epstein matters, Whitney Webb. She'll be on next week.
Before the vote was going to happen, they then, a story got leaked. Things don't get leaked from the FBI. A story got leaked that the FBI had been investigating a brothel in Virginia that is a very high-class brothel. It's $25,000 a night to get in, and just all the, elites that would go there and all these things. And it said several members of Congress are on the list. But if you notice, they didn't release the names of those members of Congress. And what it was, and you can just take.
With all that stuff going on, do you think it's a little hypocritical to feign such deep outrage when those protesters entered the Capitol building, staying well within the velvet ropes, as Norm MacDonald, God rest his soul, pointed out, as if it's a terrible transgression when they're like, we saw that tape of people having sex. That was somewhere in the cross-congressional or somewhere within the Senate institution, certainly. There's all of this sort of corruption. We know they're betting on companies and investing in stocks and shares that they invest in. Now we'd find out from our man that the whole place is riddled with honeypots. Where is the outrage coming from? What are these institutions that are being protected? I think we have to remind ourselves, was it your President Jefferson that said there's got to be a revolution every generation, otherwise the corruption will become immersive? If you're watching us on YouTube, we'll be available for a few more minutes before striding mightily off into the deep blue streams of freedom that are Rumble, for we value free speech. There's 20,000 of us watching live, nearly 21,000 watching live, participating in this movement, or you could get over onto the Awaken Wonder local stream where we give all sorts of additional access because we value the support you give us. We love you. Let's have a look at, hey, do you think, a lot of people do, that Michelle Obama will at the last moment replace our man, and now what is that lovely old gentleman, Joseph Biden, as the candidate for the Democrat Party? Because he doesn't seem willing to stand in any primaries, does he? He doesn't seem willing to debate. Even in his own message, I support this message, he doesn't sound like committed to it. I know a lot of you have said that it's a sort of a third Obama term anyway, but I feel that the visible emblems of political power are not as significant as the ulterior forces that govern them, i.e. essentially the Uniparty message. Same in our country as yours. But do you think that Michelle Obama is a potential Democrat Party leader? Certainly, she said on our friend Jay Shetty's podcast that she is disturbed or terrified by the prospect of the 2024 election. Let's have a look at that.
Former First Lady Michelle Obama said, and this, obviously was very significant. She's raising some alarm bells as far as 2024 is concerned. She says she's terrified, her word, terrified about the election. Listen to this.
What's going to happen in this next election? I am terrified about what could possibly happen because our leaders matter. Who we select, who speaks for us, who holds that bully pulpit. It affects us in ways that
Bully pulpit? Who holds that bully pulpit? Who's holding that bully pulpit? That's what I want to know. Let me know what bully pulpit's being held, you guys in the chat. Now, hey, listen, we've got a few interesting subjects to cover. From my country, we're talking about how our passport data is being stolen and utilized, archived and exploited in spite of assurances that our data was safe. Remember that. They're always telling you this data is only going to be used for medical reasons or for this or that. They're forever exploiting it. Also, we've got an extraordinary story in our country where the post office essentially had some sort of IT glitch and 700 mail workers ended up in jail. Well, not 700 ended up in jail. They ended up with criminal convictions and a significant number ended up in jail. Our country's pretty crazy. I don't know what your postal service is like, but our postal service jails its own workers every time they could, switch the bloody computer on and off again. Should we watch the rest of a little bit more of Michelle Obama?
sometimes I think people take for granted.
Very stark warning from her about the challenges that Democrats face coming up in November.
Right. Yeah, look, she's never been shy about these kinds of things. And it also, don't forget that her husband, Barack Obama, recently met with Joe Biden and gave some advice about what he ought to do with his campaign. That is, maybe move some of the people from the White House to the campaign. And so I think, this is a couple that talks to each other. And I think you can presume that.
If you're watching this on YouTube now, you are missing a fantastic chat over there in Rumble. Get into it. And over on the locals chat, there's some pretty fascinating, nuanced stuff going on in there as well. Have you seen Donald Trump's latest stand-up set? He does a pretty good Emmanuel Macron. This is the kind of populist discourse that is making Democrat rhetoric seem pretty redundant. Here he is.
Macron, do you know Macron? He's a very nice guy, Macron. And really a very nice guy. I said, Emmanuel, how are you? He said, fine. I said, I heard you're going to charge American companies 25% to do things in Mexico. Who else are you doing? Well, nobody yet, but we will do other. I said, no, but you're not going to do it, Emmanuel. You're not going to, no, Donald, it has already passed. I said, well, you better unpass it, because if you don't unpass it, you're going to pay a 100% tariff on all wines and champagnes that are shipped into the United States starting tonight. No, you cannot do that, Donald. You cannot do that.
Donald.
I said, I can do that. In fact, I'm just signing it right now. No. Okay, Donald, look, okay, I'm not going to, we're not going to do it. That was the end of it, Mike. That was the end of it. It was so easy.
So easy. Fantastic stuff. Hey, you know that Fauci is now facing an inquiry. You're aware of that, but it is what do we call it? Clandestine. It's private. It's not public. Isn't he a public official? Wasn't the pandemic a public event? Why is Fauci sitting for 2 days of depositions to explain his role in funding the Wuhan Institute of Virology, his efforts to debunk the lab leak theory, COVID mandates, federal censorship, a global propaganda campaign including musical numbers across all channels, shaming of various groups, including some of the most vulnerable people by their rhetoric in America? Extraordinary stuff. What kind of questions? Let me know in the chat what kind of questions you'd like to see Anthony Fauci asked and who you'd like to see ask them. Let me know. Let me know in the chat. Let's have a look.
Joe, any insight into Fauci's testimony today?
Well, I can tell you, Nicole, it's really expansive because you've got hours and hours of interviews that he's doing right now behind closed doors, as we mentioned, basically all day. Dr. Fauci on Capitol Hill from 9 a.m. today through 6 o'clock in the evening, and he's going to do the same thing tomorrow. And we're told that what the focus of...
I like his henchman. Look at that guy. It's sort of Dave Grohl, kind of... Danny Trejo looking dude there that's rolling with Fauci. You know, you would have seen that video we did, which I'm quite proud of, where we showed Fauci with a BBC journalist. It was like a date between the two of them. She had an hour with him. All she asked him was, why was he so ripped and how did he get his biceps looking so vascular and glorious? And you're not worried that the injection may migrate from the site. We've got some interesting content coming later this week about turbo cancers and Brett Weinstein's notion that as many as 17 million people could have died from medical interventions in the last couple of years. Now, because we're still streaming on YouTube, we can't go into too much detail. Put the 30-second countdown up, if you would, before we continue with this Fauci story. But later in the show, we're going to be in depth looking at the possibility that Epstein was a CIA agent. We're going to be revealing that the CIA have operated honey traps or honey pots or little honey pies for many years, and they've funded some extraordinary activity in order to generate entrapment. We'll be covering that. That's all, as well as some of this stuff, this Brett Weinstein 70 million death thing. Click the link in the description if you're on YouTube. Join us now on Rumble for the whole thing. Stay free.